Many bills come into my office through different ways. Russell, along with Blue Water Network, a small environmental group in San Francisco, and Tim Carmichael, who was the head of the Coalition for Clean Air, came to my office with their idea for a bill. This concept seemed like a great idea to me. Let's build on what we've been doing on cleaning up the air and also clean up greenhouse gas emissions, which were contributing to global climate change.
I believe that 1493 would accomplish a number of important goals. One, it would improve public health, it would improve the economy, it would improve the environment, and it would create new jobs.
All in all, it was a policy that was easy to embrace if you were in favor of doing anything about climate change.
I started building a coalition. There was a long list of supporters, a Better World Group, Environment California, and the list goes on and on. We couldn't have done it without them. The most powerful messengers, in my opinion, were the healthcare providers. The American Lung Association was the first one to step up to the plate. Thousands of Californians from college campuses to in churches and synagogues, members in organizations and civic groups, hundreds and hundreds of local, state, and federal officials endorsed this legislation. So it was that collective action, sort of from the ground up. We got the bare minimum of 41 votes to approve that bill, and that's how the bill became law. And so the rest is history. It does take a village to pass a bill.
It's reduced greenhouse gas emissions, it's protected public health, it's created jobs, it's stimulated the economy, but that would not have happened without 4 governors in a row in California. Arnold Schwarzenegger, a Republican following me, and then Jerry Brown, and then Gavin Newsom, all pulling in the right direction. We were sued by the automobile industry almost the moment I signed the law. Governor Schwarzenegger and Jerry Brown did a great job in defending the law from 7 years of litigation. Every single case we won, appeal we won.
Historically, the auto industry has opposed every regulation. They have resisted every waiver. When Obama was already clearly going to be the nominee, we were approached by a representative of the industry so that when there was a change in Washington, we would be able to move forward relatively quickly and resolve some of the differences.
President Obama came in office in 2009, and he decided to take about 85% of what we had done in California and apply it nationally. So the law not only impacted the people of California in a positive way, but everyone in the nation.
We had an administration that was supporting the idea that we should be working towards much more advanced fuel economy standards, that the industry was capable of doing it, the technology was there, it'd be good for consumers because they would pay less at the pump.
California had a long tradition of taking leadership on this issue. We were the first to require catalytic converters, smog checks, unleaded gasoline, and then the hybrid electric vehicles. When we were talking about changes to a 100-year-old model that the automobile industry had used, I just knew those changes had to be good, it would be exciting.
You didn't have to choose between the environment and economy. You now see the major CEOs of automobile manufacturers who had originally opposed the bill leading the world in the production of electric vehicles or other fuel-efficient vehicles.
This regulation pushed the technology, pushed the manufacturers, both domestically and foreign countries, and then the purchase right here in California. California, every 6 months, is increasing the tempo of electric car sales. And so are other states. Not as fast, but they're coming along.
17 states have now adopted our standards, and it's been a model in other states and other countries.
We are part of a much larger effort throughout the whole world, particularly in China and other countries, Scandinavian countries, where more and more of the automobiles are electric. This is a good and creative regulation, and the proof is in the pudding. Does it work? Do people like it? Is it good for the air? Is it good for reducing carbon emissions? Yes, it is, and all of that.
That law, because it constantly upgrades emissions over time, will require continuing innovation, new developments in technology, all of which I'm confident will come.
Of all of California's climate legislation, 1493 is the cornerstone, and it was built into everything else that happened afterwards. You can't overestimate how significant it was.
It's nice to look back and see how much has been done the last 20 years but I know this law will continue to affect people for decades to come.
Well, that video told it all, but welcome to the LA Cleantech Incubator, or LACI. I'm Matt Peterson, the CEO of the organization. It's so great to have you all here. It's like old home week for so many of us. We're getting the band back together to see what else we can do on climate ambition today. Just quickly, for those that aren't familiar with our organization, which is proud to partner with the Schwarzenegger Institute and Loeb & Loeb sponsor, thank you Loeb & Loeb, and of course E2, which has been an incredible partner, not just on this event, but a leader in so many ways. The LACI is a regional organization focused on how we accelerate inclusive climate action. Our mission is to create an inclusive green economy. We help startups, particularly underrepresented founders, scale their climate solutions in the market through our partnerships with the city of Los Angeles, of course. And this facility is, if you haven't been here before, you'll be surprised to know this is actually owned not just by the city of LA, but the Department of Water and Power. Nancy Sutley's here, a member of the board and leadership of LADWP. And we're blessed to be the stewards of this incredible campus. We also work through pilots and partnerships through our transportation electrification partnerships. Some of our members, like BMW, are here today. And then we do workforce training, and we try to bring that together as a holistic model to accelerate our work together in the region. Really, we just want to move on with the program, but I just want to thank Conyers and his team at the Schwarzenegger Institute. Thank you to you and everybody that put this together. All the LACI staff, everybody deserves a recognition. Clara, Sasha, Jillian, Michelle, and everybody, thank you. This, of course, was historic legislation, and the courage of conviction required to champion a bill like this is extraordinary. We have a lot of incredible, extraordinary climate leaders in this room today. Today, we're focused on AB 1493 and the really historic leadership it represents and the transformational change that it made possible. But it couldn't have happened, of course, without the governor at the time. Governor Gray Davis was elected as the 37th governor of California in 1998. He made education a top priority, of course, signing legislation to strengthen California's K-12 system, increasing accountability of schools, expanding access to higher education with a record number of scholarships and college loans. These reforms improved student achievement scores for 6 years. As my dad was a lifelong educator in Stanislaus County, Modesto, I know the importance of that leadership. While presiding over California during economic expansion, Governor Davis made record investments in infrastructure, creating 4 centers of science and innovation on the UC campuses, of course, and expanded state and health insurance for an additional 1 million children. He also was the first governor in the nation to authorize stem cell research, demonstrating bold environmental leadership at the same time by signing AB 1493, the bill we're talking about here today. He also created the first greenhouse gas monitoring registry. I think Gary Giroux ran that organization, or the partner organization, for a while. He's here today as well. We brought him out of retirement to join us, and was the first to establish the nation's most ambitious commitment to renewable energy by creating the statewide renewable portfolio standard. Of course, Kevin DeLeon, who you hear from in a minute, then took it to the next level with SB 100 later on. And in 2020, Governor Davis served on Governor Newsom's economic task force, reopening the economy. Governor Davis, along with Governor Schwarzenegger and Governor Wilson, serve on the Southern California Leadership Council, continuing that bipartisan leadership. Governor Davis is the 2022 co-chair of the Southern California Leadership Council. Thank you for your commitment to the region. Governor Davis is a regular lecturer at the Luskin School of Public Affairs at UCLA, including serving as the closing speaker for the 2022 Research and Action Summit that Luskin hosts. He also was featured as the featured speaker at the USC Gold School of Law, Real Estate, and Business Forum recently, and awarded, of course, the Bronze Star as U.S. Army captain for his service during the Vietnam War. Thank you for your service, not just to our nation, but, of course, the great state of California. Governor Davis.
Thank you, Matt. I love this incubator. It's just fantastic, and great kudos to you, Mayors Villaraigosa and Garcetti, who also envisioned this coming to be the fabulous place it is. I want to begin by thanking the Schwarzenegger Institute. That was a great video. Thank Matt. Thank Loeb, which was a sponsor. This day would not have been possible without Arnold Schwarzenegger, Conyers Davis, the Schwarzenegger team at USC, coming forward and saying, we understand the important role that AB 1493 played in the entire climate story in California, the clean energy story in California. AB 1493 was really first. Those who came after me built upon it, improved upon it, defended it, and I want to spend most of my time acknowledging what they did to maintain and improve and expand the benefits of AB 1493. First, let me mention my team, Lynn Shank. First of all, you're going to recognize a lot of these names. And a lot of these names ended up working for Arnold. Linda Adams, who was the Climate Action Registry head. I think she's still involved with that. I mean, everybody moved around. Nancy Sutley worked for us for a while, worked back in Obama's office. So they're all involved in serious ways, and I'm so proud of them. But just to name them, Lynn Shank, my chief of staff. Susan Kennedy, I called her my chief operating officer. She worked for Arnold. Nancy McFadden, Linda Adams was my legislative secretary, became head of EPA, and then Climate Action Registry. Winston Hickok and Mary Nichols. I mentioned Nancy Sutley. So all those names are still active and still involved. I'm so proud of them. Give them a big round of applause. This is so great. So since I left office, I've had the pleasure of speaking at the Schwarzenegger Institute, I think 7 times, generally on environmental matters, sometimes on AB 1493, we talk about AB 32. But we also get together in areas of mutual concern. We become friends. And today would not have happened without Arnold Schwarzenegger saying, I want to recognize AB 1493, and I want to get out front and let everyone know the Schwarzenegger Institute is putting this on. So great kudos to Arnold. Of course, it would not have happened without Senator Pavley. She and I understood back in 2002 that, oh, there's Senator Pavley. I'm looking at an empty, they had you sitting right next to me, so I thought you were here. Anyway, you're here. You're here. That's great. This day would not have been possible without Senator Pavley. So back in the day, we recognized that the largest source of carbon emissions in California came from automobiles and light trucks, about 40%. And AB 1493, we realized, would reduce emissions dramatically, protect public health, protect the environment, stimulate job growth, and stimulate the economy. But the opponents of AB 1493 said the sky was falling. But they said the same thing when the ARB mandated catalytic converters and when they mandated unleaded gasoline and seatbelts and airbags. But the sky was not falling. Quite the contrary, the air was just getting a whole lot cleaner. Today, AB 1493 in part contributes to the development of electric vehicles, although back in the day there were no electric vehicles, only a few hybrid vehicles, but contributes to the development of electric vehicles, and I'm happy a couple of years ago I joined that crowd. Again, the auto industry really didn't like this bill, and I cannot tell you how tenacious the fight was. This wasn't 5, 6, 7 years ago where 4 or 5 automobile industries kind of sided with Governor Newsom when Trump wanted to eliminate these standards going out the door in 2000. They were all against this, and there were incredible campaigns, very, very vigorous fight. So it took 2 things to make 1493 become a national law. One was the determination of 4 governors all pulling in the same direction, all determined to make sure that California, America, and the world become active in reducing emissions. Arnold was the first to pass AB 32 with Fran Pavley's help. That cap and trade program had put an upper limit on statewide greenhouse emissions. Jerry Brown passed AB 398, which reauthorized AB 32, strengthened it. That was carried by Assemblymember Eduardo Garcia, who was going to be with us. Governor Newsom built on AB 1493 by requiring that in 2035, no new cars with internal combustion engines can be sold in California, starting in 2035, and I think that deserves a round of applause. So all four governors moving in the same direction clearly put California on the map and let America know that California was very serious about dealing with climate change. But the next big player was really important, President Obama, and this video really tells the whole story. You don't need any of us talking. It tells you the whole story very succinctly. But when our bill basically survived all these litigation attacks, if you will, in early 2009. But by then, Obama was president. He was well aware of what we're doing. He liked it. He took most of it, about 85, 90% of it, worked closely with Mary Nichols, Governor Schwarzenegger, and then Attorney General Brown to forge a national solution. And so because of those efforts, 1493 not only reduces emissions in California, it reduces it nationally, and we had some impact in people's thinking around the world. Canada, actually, before Obama came along, they adopted our emissions in 2005. About 17 other states did, but the rest of America would not have come along without President Obama. So let's give him a round of applause. So finally, I just want to close with a little anecdote. I was talking to my pal Ed Bagley, who was just at every environmental measure that I was involved with way back, from creating parks and all kinds of good stuff. And I said, you know, Ed, it's not in my nature to take on a whole industry. But that was my choice. And I said to myself, look, I'm a Californian, and we believe that technology and innovation can change things for the better every 6 months to 2 years. It just happens. Once in a while, we get off the rails, but 90% of the time, we're doing something really good. The internal combustion engine had been with us for 100 years. We knew that innovation and change would come. And Fran and I were very determined not to tell them how to do it. Don't sell this car. No, we didn't tell them anything. You figure it out. And if you can't figure it out, we have plenty of scientists and innovators in California that can help you figure it out. They figured it out. They produce cars that have made an enormous difference. So I am very proud that when I came to this fork in the road, I listened to Fran Pavley, Winston Hickok, my whole team, Mary Nichols, and signed this bill, because I really do believe it started a clean energy revolution in America, which continues today. And again, I just want to thank everyone who was part of my team, who've gone on to do other things. Many of them went on to work for Arnold. Linda worked for Arnold. Susan Kennedy worked for Arnold. My buddy, what was Dan's name? I'm blocking on Dan's name, that worked for Maria. Pardon me? Daniel Zingali. Anyway, on and on. People, because they believed in the cause, and Arnold very much embraced the cause. So, and Fran now works for Arnold at the Schwarzenegger Institute. So I'm very proud of all of the people who've done such great things, but none of us would be standing here without Fran Pavley. And it's now my turn to pass the baton to you, Fran, to come up and share your remarks with me. Let's give Fran a big round of applause. Oh.
I
want to say one more thing.
20 years.
20 years. So, one last thing. When I was governor, I would always close my remarks by saying, California is a special place, graced by God, where all dreams can come true. And you made my dream come true.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll get this out of the way.
Well, when we contacted Governor Davis and we said we wanted to do this celebration, he didn't hesitate to say, absolutely, let's do it. And he wanted to do it on the exact date. So it's 20 years on the exact date. We were probably just a little way up the road at Griffith Park, right, surrounded by people, and then duplicated the ceremony at the Presidio overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge. And that was such a memorable day. But great, thank you very much for pointing out that we wouldn't be here today without 4 governors, regardless of party, standing tall and not only legally defending the bill, but giving the Air Resources Board and other agencies the autonomy to move forward with the best science possible to implement the bill. So it's been a tremendous success story and a model for other states because we are special. We've had Californians supporting governors who support these policies, and we have agencies second to none that are absolutely amazing. And yes, we've had some help along the way. And I thought my comments today would just be, I'm going to be giving a lot of shout outs to the coalition we put together. It wasn't real politically popular to tackle all the car dealers, automobile manufacturers, I learned in the legislature. I didn't know any different, you know. I was a middle school teacher. That seemed relatively easy to me. And I was elected to the legislature really with only going to Sacramento one time, so I wasn't heavily influenced and really not knowledgeable on what oil companies and others could do to overturn things. But doesn't it sound like the right thing to do? And they said you can clean up criteria air pollution from the tailpipe of vehicles and at the same time reduce greenhouse gas emissions to help save the planet? Well, duh. You know, Ed Begley would support that. Yes, I checked in with Ed. That's good enough. So I'm going to make this just hopefully a little bit of fun. If I call your name and organization, you feel free to shout out, wave, stand up, and acknowledging, because it really did take a village. There weren't a lot of big organizations in Sacramento supporting this measure. It really was a grassroots effort. Testing one question here. Who can raise their hand quickly and say what was the original number of this bill? Okay, Annie Nodoff. No, wrong. Bob Epstein. Yes, 1058. And one more test question. Where's my former chief of staff? Deborah Graver, can you tell me when this bill was introduced? 2001, February 23rd, 2001. And Deborah, who's down here from Sacramento for this, she'll probably never come down to one of my events again. But once a staff member, always a Pavley staff member, they're learning. She has probably 14 binders of all this information, every email. So those of you who sent emails back and forth, we have it. Every bill. You want to know what the bill looked like? This was it. February 23rd. It was well written. And so let's go over some of those people that need some acknowledgement. Again, if you hear your name called out, please stand, wave, or you could remain standing and applaud the others. So who were the original sponsors of the bill? Wasn't the big-time environmental groups. 2 people who I understand actually asked several other members first because they didn't want to go to a freshman assembly member. Trying not to hold that against them. But with us today from the Bay Area, Russell Long, Blue Water Network. He has stories to tell. Coalition Clean Air was the other sponsor of the bill, and Tim Carmichael couldn't be here today, but we thank them both. Without them, we never would have perhaps had this bill. NRDC shortly joined in as a co-sponsor of the bill. Thank you, NRDC. Wave, Annie, Joel, Victoria, you can all take credit. I'm actually doing this for a reason, because I expect you to continue to work in this space, not only to protect this bill, but all the climate legislation. Just because you're retired doesn't give you a pass. You can do even more. You have more free time. Okay, so we have all your names and emails now, so that's good. One of my favorite groups that I think contribute a lot to this, that doesn't get enough credit for it, is the Union of Concerned Scientists. And let me tell you what they did. Right about the year or two before this bill was introduced, they wrote a report on specifically the climate impacts to California. Now, the PPIC and others were doing bigger reports on global climate change, but they did one specifically on California. It is actually, the findings are actually in the bill, AB 1058. And what they listed was things like, this was over 20 years ago, there would be more extreme weather events like extreme heat, prolonged droughts, more wildfires, concern of sea level rise, the link between air pollution and climate change and hotter temperatures and how that would affect public health. Those were all their findings. That was over 22 years ago. That's in the bill. And they deserve an amazing amount of credit because when I dealt with legislators, they really weren't that sensitive about global climate change, especially 20 years ago. They want to know how it affects their district, agriculture or other industries. So tremendously important. And I think those findings in the bill perhaps helped with some of the litigation because we had rational reasons, scientific-based reasons on why this was important because it affected weather and climate. So UCS is here, and when Jason Mark comes here, Jason Mark, right down there. I was inviting him here not as anything to do with the Energy Foundation, but UCS, were you part of that report? Yes, thank you very much. Absolutely amazing. Did the Energy Foundation help pay for that? Yes, I knew it. Thank you very much. Also here today, V. John White with CERT. Now, if you want good stories during lunch, and I heard there's some alcoholic beverages served with lunch, it's way too early, but if you want good stories, talk to John about his favorite people, John and Ken, two conservative radio talk show hosts, and how good friends they became during this year and a half with the passage of this bill. Also here today, coming down from other parts of the state and from the LA area were representatives for the California Interfaith Power and Light. That was Reverend Sally Bingham's organization. She organized 150 religious leaders, Christian, Muslim, and Jewish faiths, to support this bill. And just coincidentally, a lot of them were in legislators' districts. And so with us today, I know we have Stephen Fox. Who else do we have? Anyone else? Temple Isaiah. Stand up if anyone else representing Interfaith Power and Light. They did an amazing, amazing job. In fact, this is a little secret. One of our last people who were on the fence on whether to vote for a bill got a little home visit from his priest at his kitchen table talking about the moral responsibility of taking care of the planet. And so it really paid off. And it actually, this coalition, what I liked about it the most, it diversified the messengers. They came from all different angles. So let's move on. American Lung Association, with us today, Bonnie Holmesgen. Yes, her testimony was probably really one of the most important testimony because it linked climate change and public health impacts, and that's what resonates with most voters, especially those of us who live in the hotter areas with the link between smog and a warming planet. NRDC, one more time standing up because they did amazing things. They did full-page ads. They had people calling. Thank you both and everyone. Now, when I think of NRDC, I have to also think of environmental entrepreneurs. They were started just a few months before this bill was introduced. I didn't know that. I thought they were experienced venture capitalists from the Bay Area. They were great messengers. They put a business face on it. They could talk to people that I couldn't. They knew where every district was. They were so organized. But who founded environmental entrepreneurs? With us today is Bob Epstein. He has lots of stories, so over lunch, Bob, you're free to talk about it. Yes, your lips are sealed. Okay, good. And please thank Nicole Lederer, too, because she was the co-founder with Bob. Representing E2 today is Bob Keefe, their national director. Where's Bob Keefe? And you can thank E2 because they are hosting the lunch today. So that's important. So with Environmental Defense Fund, actually, they were very engaged on a national level. NRDC too, national and state and local, all the way down to make things. So Environmental Defense Fund is represented by Jim Marston, who flew in from Austin, Texas. Jim was told to come out to California and stay here till it passed. And so he has some very interesting stories he might want to share. So also, League of Conservation Voters was engaged. I'll name a few people that were not here today, but really helpful. Pete Price and Doug Linney and David Allgood. I noticed some of the board members were here, including Rampa Hermel, and did Fran Diamond come as well? Rampa, thank you for representing CLCV today. Amazing job. I saw Wendy James here today, Better World Group. Where's Wendy? There she is. There she is. As far as media and public outreach, second to none. They did a tremendous job in organizing all this. And with Wendy today are members of the Better World Group. You can just wave that are here if anyone wants to talk to them. There they are. Thank you. Okay, now driving or flying quite a distance, our Sonoma Climate Center. It was co-founded by Ann Hancock and Mike Sandler, also with a statewide organizer, Mark Victoria. Mark and Mike, would you stand up? I don't know if you remember the slide up here, but it showed a bus. Only in Sonoma County did they get every single one of their cities to endorse and pass resolutions in support of this bill, but they also rented a bus, came to the bill signing. Their signs are hilarious. Some I can print out for the public, but they were amazing supporters and just sort of showed you what kind of enthusiasm and energy this bill was generating across the state. My staff, I mentioned, Deborah Gravert is here, and I just wanted to give shout outs to Susan Little and Ann Baker, who recently passed away, who also were instrumental from the Sacramento perspective in putting up with, it was an easy bill, right, Deborah? You know what she told me after this was over, Pavley, she said? We called it just respectfully by our last names only. Next year, children and puppies. That's all we're doing in here. And we did. Okay, and so again, I wanted to not only reiterate when we implemented the bill, the relatively easy part is passing a bill. Then you have to make sure someone signs the bill. Governor Gray Davis and your team worked in my office. I sort of remember Linda Adams sitting at a typewriter in my office. We were wordsmithing final languages. It could be sounded in Winston Hickox. And I really appreciate it because it takes a lot of courage. You want to alienate some of the most powerful special interest groups in the state. You have to know there could be a price for that. And he stepped up and he signed it. And not only signed it, made sure it was implemented and the Air Resources Board was off. So thank you again, Gray Davis. And finally, we know 4 governors and everything, but we couldn't do it without the California Air Resources Board. I want to give a shout out to Alan Lloyd, who's not with us today. He wanted to be here. He was the first chair of CARB, Tom Calquette. Mary Nichols, you know, did a lot on implementing the bill in our state and also nationally. And with us today, though, is Vice Chair Sandy Berg from the Air Resources Board. Sandy? And a real short story about her, and that'll be my close, is that this bill took about 1.5 years to adopt the regulations, and then there was this small little hearing in Los Angeles. Was anyone there for a hearing about Yes, thank you, Sandy. About 18 years ago, it was near a hotel in LAX, standing room only, filled with attorneys. And it was the first hearing that Sandy Berg was in. In fact, Governor Schwarzenegger had put 4 brand new people on the Air Resources Board, and this was going to be their first hearing in that kind of environment. All 4 supported the bill, the first hearing, and they were eloquent and articulate in the reasons why they were supporting the bill. And Sandy Berg is now vice chair of the California Air Resources Board and still on the board. And I think I counted it right. That's about 18 years, correct? Thank you, Sandy. So final note of appreciation. The staff at the USC Schwarzenegger Institute, I wanted to again thank Conyers Davis, wherever he is, and Francisca and Allison. I can come up with some bright ideas, but it falls on someone else to have to implement them. Didn't they do a great job along with Matt Peterson's team at Lacey and my friends, the environmental entrepreneurs? Thank you again. Thanks for coming.
All right. Let's give it up for Fran Pavley. Fran, stand again. We need to give you, Fran, stand up. Fran, stand up. We just turn around and face everybody. We're going to give you a round of applause. Yeah, come on. Yeah, it does take a village. Success has many mothers and fathers. Failure is an orphan, of course, but today we're celebrating all those mothers and fathers that made this possible. Quick side note, Fran, when I ran Global Green, was a great partner. Thanks again for your leadership on solar and affordable housing and the AB32 Community Empowerment Amendment, which we got in at the last minute, that then led to AB 535 and SB 535. So many great things that you did while you were in the legislature, Fran. Now we're, though, going to hear from Linda Adams, a former California EPA secretary and a leader in her own right on behalf of Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. Linda?
Good morning, everyone. It's really an honor to be here this morning with all of you environmental heroes. And I think Senator Pavley has pretty much mentioned almost everyone. I want to give a shout out to Gary South. I haven't had a chance to say hello. And it's so nice to see all of you here that I've worked with for many, many years. Governor Schwarzenegger asked me to read a letter. He's very sorry he can't be here. But I just want to say a few things that haven't been mentioned yet. The scare tactics by the opposition, what we decided to do, I think it was maybe that's when I was typing in your office. I don't even remember that, but it's funny how you remember certain things. But we decided to take all those things that the opposition was saying. We're going to take that the Air Board would take away your minivan, your pickup truck. They would make the cars so light they would be dangerous. So we thought, well, we'll write that into the bill that the Air Board cannot do that. I haven't read the bill in 20 years, but I do remember that. And I want to give one more shout out, Dan Jacobson. I don't know if he was mentioned, but whenever Governor Davis signed one of our great environmental bills, I would call Dan sometimes at 11 p.m. and he would get a crowd for us. So thank you, Dan. He would get students and signs and T-shirts, so thank you. And I was in a very unique position in that I got to negotiate the bill for one governor and then help implement it for another. And I want to also tell one little story that Annie didn't remember, but she and I were talking, getting ready for the final vote. and I think it was a Monday, concurrence in Senate amendments. And I was told to get on an airplane and fly to Burbank because Governor Davis was flying to Sacramento, and I had briefcases full of bills. It was bill signing time, so I had briefcases full of bills to sign, and maybe Governor Davis will remember this. And we were loading up on the Southwest flight, and we were informed that we would try to usually leave a space in between so we could have some working space because we're looking at bills and files, and we were told that the plane would be full. And so I squeezed over, and I knew that the Democrats usually took Southwest from Burbank to fly to Sacramento. So Annie and I had been talking about where is our 41st vote, and she gave me one or two names. And who got on the plane and sat with us? It was vote 41. I don't know if you remember this, Gray, but he said, he leaned over to Governor Davis and said, "What about that Pavley bill?" And Gray said, "Ask her." I don't know, ask her, pointed to me. So I was able to tell the governor and the swing vote what we did with the bill. And I said, I think it's good. And I called back and talked to Annie, and sure enough, that was vote 41. So that's going to be in my book. Anyway, and then what Fran and I, and there were a few others that went to Washington, D.C. with Governor Schwarzenegger, and we were pretty sure that our waiver would be denied. You know, we had 40 years of waivers approved, but we had already got the sense that it would be denied. And Fran, I don't know if you remember how quickly we got shown the door at the US EPA. It was rather shocking how quick we were escorted out. So those were my, and of course we then went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the rest is history. So those are my kind of fun stories that I remember. It's funny how everyone remembers something different. So I would like to read part of this letter from Governor Schwarzenegger, and it's addressed to Governor Davis and Senator Pavley. I wish I could be with you and the other honored guests for today's celebration of AB 1493. I'm currently in the middle of filming a new television show in Toronto and can't get away. That said, I'm with you in spirit. It's fantastic that you are marking the 20th anniversary of this influential law and California's continued environmental leadership. In 1967, Governor Reagan fought for California's power to protect our air, establishing the California Air Resources Board to address the serious issue of air pollution in the state. 20 years ago, you both had the wisdom to develop an ingenious piece of legislation that leveraged California's special status under the Clean Air Act to terminate passenger vehicle pollution and continue our state's global environmental leadership. For more than 5 decades, California has proved that states and local governments don't have to wait for Washington to act, especially when lives are at stake. This law is proof that there truly is no fate but what we make for ourselves. Our state, nation, and world owe you a debt of gratitude for your foresight and fortitude. Subsequent gubernatorial administrations and legislatures have doubled down to support the law and build upon it. Instead of undoing the work of a Republican governor, Democratic governors Jerry Brown and Gavin Newsom defended the law from attacks and used it as a foundation to build even stronger environmental protections. Unlike Washington, California does not flip-flop when it comes to protecting the environment and the health of its citizens, changing policy 8 years depending on what party is in control. We stay the course. We don't play politics with clean air, and we never will. I hope that Washington and political leaders around the country are taking note. There's a better way to do things, and the success of AB 1493 and its far-reaching impact over the past 20 years provides a playbook that any serious leader who is truly working in the best interests of the people can replicate. It's helped our citizens breathe cleaner air, and it's helped the car companies innovate. There's a reason that Tesla got its start in the state with the most aggressive tailpipe standards. I'm honored to stand with the many California leaders who have supported this important law, and I'm so happy that everyone is gathered today to celebrate the architects of it and our state's commitment to the environment. Gray and Fran, you are both true action heroes who have made California a model for the world. Thank you for all you have done. Sincerely, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Arnold. We missed you. There are, as we said earlier, a lot of extraordinary individuals in this room. I forgot to recognize Tom Soto, the board member of LA Cleantech Incubator. Thank you, Tom. And, you know, we've talked about Ed Begley, but one additional thing, back when I ran Global Green, we were doing this campaign to get celebrities of the Oscars and hybrid cars and try to popularize fuel-efficient vehicles. So we called Ed and said, hey, would you do this? He goes, ride in a hybrid car? No, I'll do you one better. I'm going to ride my bike to the Oscars. So, Ed, you always one-up us. Thank you for your leadership. Great to see your daughter here with you today. Last night, about 1 a.m., Councilmember Kevin Daly and I arrived back in Los Angeles from a field study trip to London and Berlin, where he's represented the city of LA, and Mayor Garcetti at the C40 Clean Air Summit hosted by Sadiq Khan in London, and then we went on to Berlin to learn about their leadership and do a roundtable at the Aspen Institute. But Councilmember De Leon clearly, was a leader in the state Senate and got some extraordinary things done as well when he was President Pro Tem. SB 100, we had a celebration event that Environment California and Dan helped organize here. Certainly been a fellow with the Schwarzenegger Institute since he left office, and as Lacey's council member in CD14, where he's been a champion for us on the city council for city funding, along with Mayor Garcetti, for incubation programs, state funding from our legislative delegation, and helped us get our first venture fund by working with Emerson Collective. So he really doesn't need any introduction, but welcome to the stage, Kevin De Leon.
Thank you so very much, Matt. Good morning to each and every one of you. It's amazing to be here with all of you, to see a lot of really good friends, folks who we worked hard in the trenches together to pass, without questions, the most innovative, compelling, extraordinary policymaking legislation, not just in the history of California, but in the United States of America, and I'll take it a little step further, in the world. It is a joy to be here with my very, very good friends, Francisca Pavley, who I've always said, very affectionately when we served together in the California State Senate. Governor Gray Davis. Gray, it is great to see both you and Sharon, and obviously my very good friend Linda, when we worked together very closely moving forward equity with regards to cap and trade and Senate Bill 535. I want to give a special thank you to both Matt Peterson and our very good friend Conyers, Davis, the CEO, Executive Director, Schwarzenegger Institute, for bringing us together. And as Matt just mentioned a few moments ago, I want to make this very brief because I may keel over because we landed at 1 in the morning, and I woke up like at 5:30 in the morning. So I didn't go to bed till like around 2 o'clock this morning, but I wanted to be here for Fran. And I want to sort of kind of, just touch upon subnational leadership and the trailblazer that Francisca Pavley is, for all of us. I had the honor to follow Fran, into the Senate and work with her very closely on lots of groundbreaking progressive legislation. But, I think our trip was a whirlwind in Europe. I think we had the distinction, either I was honored or horrified to spend the hottest day in recorded history in the city of London while meeting Mayor Sadiq Khan. Simultaneously, I think a few days thereafter, we caught a flight and we landed in Berlin, where we met with authorities in Berlin. And we also spent the hottest day in recorded history in Berlin, Germany. So that's proof positive, but we have our droughts, our wildfires here, our heat islands that are increasingly becoming much hotter, especially in communities of color. They are now facing the devastating impacts of climate change in real time. So it brings us back to California, the fifth largest economy in the world, where we have proven successfully you can delink and decarbonize carbon from GDP. In short, we can actually reduce carbon dioxide emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, as well as other criteria pollutants. I won't go down the laundry list, Fran, as you always say, as you mimic me all the time as I go through NOx and SOx, PM, particulate matter 2.5, wherever we're at, whether it's in Tokyo, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in the state capital, Fran always mimics me wherever I go with my laundry list, of criteria pollutants. But we know it's real, and I think, Fran, we're here to celebrate the California clean air standards that you, along with your team and a host of other incredible actors, were a part of. Our chief executive at the time, who had the courage of his convictions to move forward, expert counsel from Linda Adams and others from the Gray Davis administration, putting this together. And this is where we're at today, because we see a pattern of not just AB 1493 and what then President Barack Obama did in terms of nationalizing these standards, but also to when the Kyoto protocols were signed in Japan, and when we had a president of the United States who intentionally undermined the Kyoto protocols, I think the world, there was a sense of dread and a sense of lack of hope and inspiration. But all of a sudden, there was a beam of hope and opportunity with Assembly Bill 32. And when the others said that it couldn't be done, Assembly 32 actually gave hope and inspiration to not just Californians, not just Americans, but also to the rest of the world. When folks said that we couldn't decarbonize the grid, and then Byron Scher took it from 0 to 20%, and my good friend, Joe Simidian up in Stanford and in Santa Clara right now, when he took it from 20 to 33%, in the same argument that Gray just mentioned a few moments ago, all the well-paid, heeled lobbyists with all the money that you can imagine said the sky would fall, the economy would implode, unemployment would go through the roof, you'd have pandemonium, you would have political gridlock, and at the same time, our energy rates would go through the roof. But quite the opposite happened. And that's when you have the courage of your convictions to do what's right. And together, when we took AB 32 and it was time to extend AB 32, Fran led the way, and we worked in partnership with SB 32. But this is subnational leadership, and this is the reason why this day is so important as we recognize and celebrate AB 1493, because it was the beginning chapter of leadership from our state of California. With last week's announcement and actions in Washington, D.C., with Senator Joe Manchin, when we have a Democratic president in the White House, when we have a democratically controlled legislative body, both the House as well as the U.S. Senate, irrespective if you need Kamala Harris, our vice president, to be the tiebreaker. We move policies with a sense of intentionality and a sense of purpose. Sometimes I will admit, not to get too overly partisan, but sometimes I will admit that I wish Democrats would fight like hell in Washington, D.C., the way Republicans fight like hell for what they believe in Washington, D.C. That's why when you have the courage of your convictions to do what's right, just like Fran demonstrated back in the day, when perhaps it wasn't the coolest thing to be a policymaker on the issue of climate. That's what a trailblazer does. And that's what Fran means so much to us, and the whole ecosystem that was behind Fran to move forward these policies that open up the door. I'm not quite sure if I would have moved SB 535 or Senate Bill 350 or Senate Bill 100, decarbonizing our grid, if I didn't know who Fran Pavley was and was inspired and motivated from Fran Pavley. Lastly, I'm going to say to each and every one of you, more than ever in the year 2022, especially meeting with Mayor Khan, Sadiq Khan from London, a city that is 10 million, the size of all of LA County. And I jokingly said to him but I was serious. You are the de facto Minister of Climate for the United Kingdom. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. You are the de facto Minister of the Environment. And you are the de facto Prime Minister, irrespective of who they choose as the next Conservative Party for the United Kingdom, on the issues of climate change. That's why the power of subnational leadership is more important than ever before. Stop looking towards Washington, D.C., my friends. Even with executive orders, when you have a Supreme Court and you have a federal court system that has been packed by Republicans because they think the long game, always, and they're ready to litigate. The real leadership and the real power, the real heroes and sheroes are in our own backyard. They're here in the city of LA. They're throughout the state of California. They're in Sacramento. They are the ones who are going to lead the way, just like Fran Pavley demonstrated to each and every one of us, and to all Californians, to everyone throughout the world, that California will continue to be a beacon of hope and opportunity during very challenging and difficult times. Mi querida Francisca, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you for your friendship. I thank you for our partnership, together at the Schwarzenegger Institute. I thank you for being one of my votes to become the pro tem of the state of California. Yeah, you were the first woman vote for me. You saw something in me perhaps I didn't see in myself, and I thank you for everything that you've done for us. Thank you so much. Gracias a todos. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Council Member. True words have been spoken about Fran, that's for sure. Now we are honored to have our friends in the White House, the Biden administration, here with us today virtually. And we all know Ali Zaidi leadership in its own right, but he's here today to represent the Biden administration, to congratulate and thank Fran. Ali Zaidi, the Deputy White House National Climate Advisor, should be on Zoom with us now. Hey, Ali. Welcome.
Hey, everybody. I am disappointed to not be there in person, although I think we've imported the heat from LA. We're hitting triple digits this weekend. So in a way, I guess I get to swelter with you at the very least. Let me just say, having visited the Cleantech Incubator in the past, what an incredibly important asset that is, not just to Los Angeles, but to the country. And an important playbook of bringing together local communities, expanding the reach of opportunity into folks who are too often left out and left behind when we think about new sectors and segments of the economy. How you're really, I think, marshaling the very best that Southern California and really innovators around the world, what they have to offer this transformation that we need to be pursuing with a sense of urgency and emergency. So very grateful to you. It's good to follow Kevin and be able to, I think, lift up something that he in particular has been such a great champion for in the state of California. As I think about the DNA of climate policy here in the Biden administration, we cannot spell climate action without environmental justice. It is part and parcel of how we're approaching the transformation that we seek. It can't just be about greenhouse gas emissions. It's got to be about lifting folks up, about addressing legacy pollution, about empowering our workers and communities. And Kevin De Leon, I think, has done a tremendous job of being an advocate for that, not only in the legislation that he's advanced in the state, but really in the way he's projected that leadership out all across the world. So very grateful, Kevin, to be able to follow you. I think in Fran's story, someone who decided teaching middle school in Moore Park that she was going to help advance this critical legislation and push. In the example of the folks that she's partnered with, Annie, who's a dear friend, advocates like her in the state, folks who on the regulatory side have really written a playbook that is been replicated time and time again. Mary Nichols, to whom I've at least personally looked often for counsel and advice, both when we were working together as partners when I was in the Obama administration, and as we've ramped into this new administration, she's been an incredible source of input and inspiration. You know, this is the kind of leadership we need. Folks in every sector, whether it's the entrepreneurial community that gets together time and time again at the Cleantech Incubator, whether it's legislators drawn from our communities, our teachers, our guides, whether it's advocates operating at the state level, creating playbooks that have been replicated around the country, or it's folks who do the important work of translating the public health information that we know, the science that we see clearly, and the technology that we can harness and put it into standards that can help guide the marketplace. You know, transportation, folks know this, is the largest source of climate pollution. And as we look to implement the president's goal of cutting our emissions nationwide by 50 to 52% by 2030, transportation is going to be a big part of that transformation. Thanks in part to state leadership. And, you know, I got a chance to work in state government in New York and enjoyed a healthy rivalry with the state of California. And you know, in the confidence of just the few people gathered here, let me say, California, I think, gives every state a run for their money in terms of climate action, and that's a good thing. That has propelled, I think, the shift we're seeing across the country, and really a renaissance in the American auto industry. One of the things I've really enjoyed being able to do with the president is visit with not only the auto CEOs, but the members of the UAW who are working in places like Dearborn and Detroit, who are reinvigorated in the sense that they get to be part of U.S. leadership in transforming this sector to one that is a critical building block in the clean energy future that we seek. One of the things that President Biden committed to on the campaign trail that he followed through on with a day one executive order and then subsequent action by the EPA and the Department of Transportation was to reinstate California's authority under the Clean Air Act to implement its own leading greenhouse gas emissions standards for cars and light trucks. You know, this was a critical action to really, I think, re-empower the Pavley standards from the early 2000s, to re-empower the vision that's been set through the ZEV framework. And really the transformative work that's happening in California on fuels as well through the LCFS. And you know, I think we're all the beneficiaries for the innovation that's been happening over the last several decades. Oftentimes, people look to California and think innovation in terms of technology. I think you all have borne witness to and helped shape the innovation in policy leadership as well. And if we're going to tackle this emergency the way it ought to be tackled, we're going to need to have that innovation and that inventiveness in not only in technology, but in complementary policy work as well. Let me just say, you know, to close out, we are right there with you as a federal government, as the Biden-Harris administration. also having imported our vice president from the great state of California, with a commitment to clean air, a commitment to environmental justice, recognizing that Black and brown communities, low-income communities, tend to live disproportionately in the places of greatest impact when we don't get our act together. We've worked very closely with the state on the standards we've set to date, whether it's in light duty or in medium or heavy duty. And we're going to work together to marshal everything we've got, all 50 states, to accelerate a future of transportation that is electric, a future of transportation that no longer puts pollution into the sky, and a future of transportation where America is squarely in the lead, where our workers with good paying jobs and good benefits and the right to collectively bargain are literally building a key plank in a world that can be more sustainable and livable, and where we can check the worst effects of climate change from happening. So let me close out where I started, with immense gratitude to the individuals from every sector and every segment of California, for the state level and local leadership, which really has translated into international impact, and express my deep conviction on behalf of this administration and the president, that we are in common cause and common purpose in advancing this work that has taken decades to get us here, and will take decades for us to be complete, but the work of addressing the climate crisis and moving forward on jobs and justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ollie. Really appreciate you joining us virtually from Washington. Thank you for your leadership and, of course, the President's leadership. And now we have a special message from our current governor.
Well, the Supreme Court is restricting the federal EPA's ability to tackle climate change. Here in California, we're celebrating the 20th anniversary of California's Clean Cars Rule. Our state proudly has been working hard to tackle pollution and clean air for well over a half a century. And during the Trump administration, boy, we fought hard. We fought hard to keep this rule in place so Californians can have cleaner air. One thing we know, these regulations, they work. And we know there's a lot more work to be done. In 2020, we became the first state, the first to announce the end of new gas car sales by 2035, and the first in the world to require heavy-duty truck manufacturers to transition to electric zero-emission vehicles by 2045. Proudly, 17 states follow California's car standards. Dozens of states, countries, and automobile manufacturers have jump-started the electric vehicle revolution by committing to an end date for the tailpipe. In the Biden administration, to their credit, they reversed the Trump-era obstacles for California's climate leadership, clearing a path for other states to follow. We will always keep reaching for more progress, for more partnerships, and more ways to, well, make our air cleaner. By the way, when we talk about more, we're investing more than $53.9 billion, incremental, new investments over the last couple of years, $54 billion to fight climate change. That's, by the way, on a scale of, I think, what other countries spend. Challenge me on that. And that includes, by the way, $6.1 billion for zero-emission vehicles, building on last year's unprecedented funding for a total two-year funds of $10 billion. Because of our investments, electric vehicles remain one of California's top exports. California is a working model for how to aggressively fight the climate crisis while boosting the economy. We don't have time. We do not have time to spare anymore. And thankfully, our electric vehicles have the horsepower to keep up.
Thank you, Governor. Well, we're exactly 40 minutes behind, which is a good sign for any celebration, like a wedding or an anniversary, and particularly today's celebration. So I'm not going to formally introduce the panel. I'll turn it over to Jason and let everybody introduce themselves, but thank you all. I'm a fanboy of everybody that spoke today, and including this panel. I'm a fanboy of each and every one of you. Thank you.
Good Good morning, folks. Jason Mark, I'm the CEO of the Energy Foundation, and I knew it was going to be a great day when I arrived at the airport this morning, and the flight number I was getting on was 1493. So, as I think someone said as I came in, it's probably a good date. I have a photographic proof for you, Lauren. So we're going to get right in, and as we said, have a short amount of time. So, going to ask our panelists to keep it to 3 to 5 minutes responses. We're going to go down the line. Starting with Sandy Berg, who's as we heard, Vice Chair of the California Air Resources Board. Great to have you here. And
Thank you.
Lauren Faber-O'Connor, the Chief Sustainability Officer for the Mayor of Los Angeles. Thanks so much for joining us. And Bob Keefe, the Executive Director of Environmental Entrepreneurs. So it's great to have you all. These are folks who have actually lived the experience and are still today succeeding, I think, on the backs of the work that Senator Pavley and many others did. So, Ms. Burke, could we start with you? Could you talk a little bit about your experience being on the Air Resources Board and your journey watching this incredible policy move forward and perhaps what you think it means for the future as well?
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for having me. As Fran indicated, this is a special celebration for me because my very first meeting was, in fact, the vote for 1493. And I had been a board member for exactly 30 days. I knew for a fact the amazing work that staff had done. I knew the challenges, but until you walked into that room with standing room only, and Fran, the bank of cameras in the back, it was very, very overwhelming, but also what an absolute opportunity to understand exactly what the California Air Resource Board, the importance of it, and the importance of really all the stakeholders. And so one of the things that we talk about are not only the challenges, but the opportunities. And when we look at challenges, you know, there's a difference between challenges and those that oppose and make up stories. There are real challenges to these regulations, and our march to zero emission will be no different. The difference is in challenges, we know we can overcome them. It's how do we do it as leaders? And therein lies the opportunity. And as I thought about these things, opportunity truly is the ability, the promise of seeing a better self, the promise of what this vision becomes. And so I'm sure we'll be talking about zero emission in a little bit, but really that is the future. And I believe that really what one of the premier things that 1493 did is it truly was the tipping point for the autos that this was here to stay, that their contribution to health and to climate was absolutely identified. We weren't going to back down, and they needed to really step up. And I think it truly was the tipping point legislation and implementation, because we had to fight like hell to get it, and we had to wait 7 years. And we did not back down. And so it really showed me that not only is the Air Resources an agency that will fight like hell, but also we're patient because we know when, and then we're ready. So we're ready to go when the green light's on. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And thank you for your contributions. Lauren, if we could turn to you, could you talk a little bit about what the Clean Car Standards mean for a city like Los Angeles and how it fits into the city's efforts to combat mobile source emissions?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, the 1493 started it all, right? I think we all are recognizing that it started it all. And now, you know, it gives us a whole other platform in Los Angeles where, you know, we continue to be in LA, the most polluted part of the country, not just the state, the country. And so much of that comes from the transportation sector, the vast majority. And 1493 has given this incredible platform, and the work that CARB has been doing to clean up the transportation sector has really seen incredible benefit, particularly on the light duty side. And so what's exciting to me is how do we take the lessons that we've learned from 1493 and from the work of CARB, and now see what CARB and what we in LA are doing to apply that to the medium and heavy duty sector. That's really an incredible area that is causing so much of the problem, both from the air pollution side and the climate side that we're facing now. And we have situations like the Port of Los Angeles, a major source of pollution coming from heavy duty trucks. So we've learned the lessons of what does it look like to go out on a limb, to go first, and to expect that others will be able to follow, that you're going to be technology forcing, and that you're going to be saving lives. And so one of the things that Mayor Garcetti did in 2017 was team up with the mayor of Long Beach, so the Port of LA and Port of Long Beach together committed to zero emission heavy duty transportation by 2035. That was unheard of at the time, and we also caught a lot of flack for it. And now, thankfully, the governor has made that the law of the land for ports. And so we see that the work that we do, even a city up to the state, and I'm really excited to see, in the long term, the long game, what that's going to mean globally.
Thank you so much. Bob, to you, having been there at the moment, I remember environmental entrepreneurs was one of the first times that we saw the business community really show up. Not just here in California, but perhaps in the country in a powerful way. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that. And of course, you literally just wrote the book on the economics of climate change, climate and economics. So I'd love to offer an opportunity for you to kind of connect the dots to how you see the business community's engagement in climate action.
Well, thank you for that, and thanks everybody. And we've been talking about all the things that AB 1493 did. One of the things that it did was solidify the importance of the business voice for the economy. It seems kind of odd these days, but back then, businesses were almost uniformly against things that were good for the environment. And because they bought into the false narrative that so many industries and lobbyists and others were spewing that we couldn't have a good economy and a good environment. Well, 1493 changed that. Fran Pavley changed that. Bob Epstein, the co-founder of E2, changed that. And it changed the world. It changed a lot of things. And my organization, E2, every year we do an annual report called Clean Jobs America. We're coming out with our next report in a couple of weeks. And what it's going to show is that 150,000 people now work in the electric vehicle industry. When you count in hybrids and other plug-in vehicles, we're talking about 250,000 people that now work in these industries. That's because of Fran Pavley. That's because of 1493. That's because of Governor Davis. And I want to give you an example, if I could, and I'm going to put one of my friends on the spot here, of what that looks like. Ariel, can you stand up for a minute? Ariel Fan is one of our fantastic E2 members here in town. Ariel is a young entrepreneur who happened to start a car charging company not too long ago here in town. Ariel started with one person herself. She now just told me I think she's up to 12 people. Just got a huge round of funding and is going to be expanding outside of LA, across California and across the country. That's what 1493 did. That's what Fran Pavley and Bob Epstein and Governor Davis did. And again, it solidifies the importance of business voices for the environment and the impacts that they have on the economy.
Thank you so much. Amazing. And a great story. So I'm well aware that this panel, I think, sits between you and lunch. So I'm just going to look over to say we're a couple minutes and we're ready to roll. Okay, so we're going to wrap up in just a couple minutes. I'd love to give you folks a chance to maybe offer a couple phrases around what you're hopeful around and as you look forward and kind of the challenges ahead. And whoever's ready to go first, just a couple thoughts on as we think about the tremendous accomplishment that we're celebrating today, but also I think the substantial challenge in front of us. What would you offer folks here in the room and online as words of hope around the opportunity ahead?
Well, so one thing that comes to mind for me, particularly where I sit in the city, is that cooperation, partnership, and collaboration can happen. 1493 is an example of something that was generated at the state, as we've heard, has built an incredible, long-lasting coalition, but also wouldn't have had the full impact that it had if it wasn't for, again, the Obama administration and folks like Nancy Sutley at CEQ, who teamed up with Lisa Jackson at USCPA, and my boss, my old boss at California EPA, Linda Adams. But cooperation and collaboration and learning that can be something that we can apply to the energy sector, to water, and so on.
Thank you so much.
And I'll jump on the back of that, and that is what really gives me hope is stepping back and celebrating, because we have real challenges in front of us, and we have a very diverse community here in California. We are not all singing from the same song sheet, and we have real challenges to overcome and real opportunities and equity. And yet, to get everybody together, what gives me hope is hearing about the accomplishments that have taken place, and knowing what we do have is the innovation, the heart, and the will, and we will figure out these challenges going forward. And that truly does give me a lot of hope. Thank you.
Thanks, Sandy. And Bob?
Well, and you mentioned the book. Thank you for that. I would say what gives me hope is innovation and the business voice and the business economy. I mean, look, the solar panels that we have today, guys, are not the solar panels that Jimmy Carter put on the White House. The electric vehicles that we have today are not GM's EV1, as great as they may have been from the 90s. The technology has caught up, and it's caught up because of smart policy like 1493. We need more of that policy in Washington, of course. We need more of that policy in Sacramento, and we're going to get there, and it's going to drive the innovation that we need to make a meaningful dent in climate change.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So 3 key lessons: collaborate, celebrate, innovate. Perfect. Thank you so much. Please join me in thanking the panel. And back to you, Matt, wherever you are.
I think we've lost Matt, but there's lunch, so. So yeah, I'd just like to thank everybody for coming. I'd like to just take one last moment to thank Francisca and Allison on the Schwarzenegger Institute team. A lot of people have been thanking me, but they really are the ones that deserve the credit. They've been amazing. And thank you for coming. We have a fantastic lunch. I think everybody's going to enjoy it. So please come, celebrate, schmooze. Let's have a great time. And thank you, and thanks to everybody for their leadership.
I just want to add and invite everybody to also visit our EV installation in the front of the building. We have some really impressive vehicles that I think you'll be interested in checking out just before lunch. So.
you.